The harsh reality about the NFL is that you could make it to the Super Bowl in your second season and play 18 more years in the league and never make it back to that stage. That's how I feel Joe Burrow's career is going to play out as long as he remains the starting quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals, because I don't think the Bengals are ever going to be able to make it back to the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow. Even though he is the Patrick Mahomes stopper, from this point on, Joe Burrow is always going to be at a talent disadvantage anytime the Bengals go up against any of the premier franchises in the AFC. Rather, if it's the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, their roster is never going to be as good as any of those squads because they're going to be a top-heavy team. The majority of their cap space is going to be taken up by the money being spent to pay Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and either Trey Hendrickson or T. Higgins, whoever they decide to keep, if they can even keep both of them. And with so much money being spent to those 3, possibly 4 guys, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the Bengals to nail their draft picks, something that they haven't been able to do at a consistently high rate. If anything, they've consistently whiffed in the NFL draft on a handful of picks. Why do you think their defense was so bad this past season? And why their defense has steadily declined over these last couple of years? It wasn't all because of Lou Anarumo falling off and offenses figuring him out. It also was because that year they went to the Super Bowl, you had guys like Von Bell, Jesse Bates, veterans that have been in the league for a while, high-end players. But over the last couple of years, you replace those high-end veterans, above-average veterans, with younger guys who haven't really been that good and you haven't been able to develop. As much as it pains me to say this, the Cincinnati Bengals have peaked with Joe Burrow as the starting quarterback. If Joe Burrow ever wants to have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl again, he has to demand a trade out of Cincinnati. They just don't have the money with what they're going to have to pay to keep Jamar Chase and to possibly keep either T. Higgins or Trey Hendrickson to get any more high-impact players in free agency. They have struggled on the offensive line for the last 6 years. They've done a poor job of drafting that position. The best offensive line acquisition they've been able to get has been Orlando Brown. And Armarius Mims looks pretty promising, but offensive guard is still a huge hole that you have to address. And with this organization doing a poor job of being able to draft and just them not having money to be able to invest heavily in free agency at premium positions, how is Joe Burrow ever going to get back to that stage again? It seems like that brief 2-year run that the Bengals had when they went to back-to-back AFC championships and they lost to the Rams Super Bowl was the peak of the Joe Burrow era in Cincy. That's the best that it's ever going to get for him. Because moving forward with what they've had to pay him, unless he's willing to take a pay cut, which I don't know if he's bringing that up. He wants to keep everybody around. He wants to keep the posse together. If he's not going to take a pay cut, then how are the Bengals going to be able to put together this money to keep everybody along with being good enough to suffice at other positions? They're not going to be able to do that. The Baltimore Ravens are always going to have a better team than Cincinnati because they always hit on their draft picks more than what the Bengals do. The majority of the Ravens' best players have been homegrown. They've drafted them and they've developed them, and then they've made some good free agency signings along the way. Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, they signed him in free agency. Marlon Humphrey. The majority of their best players, Lamar Jackson, they drafted. Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. The Bengals aren't that good at drafting compared to the Baltimore Ravens. And even the Steelers have a higher hit rate in the draft than what the Bengals do. So with your roster just always being at a disadvantage when you go up against some of the best quarterbacks and the best teams when you see them in the playoffs, just puts so much pressure on Joe Burrow where he always has to be perfect. Now, he definitely can play perfect in the postseason. I'm not putting anything past the Patrick Mahomes stopper, but with Zach Taylor as your head coach, I don't think that he gives you a good advantage when it comes to the coaching matchup when you go up against a Sean McDermott, Andy Reid, or John Harbaugh. From this point out, yeah, the Bengals are always going to be high in the Super Bowl odds because with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, you always have a chance. But that 2-year run they had just seemed like the perfect storm. The best chance to win is when you have a young quarterback on a rookie deal and the majority of your best players on cheap deals. You know, you had Jamar Chase on the rookie deal, T. Higgins on the rookie deal. You know, a lot of players on defense were fairly young into their contracts. And now you look at what the Bengals look like compared to what they were when they went to the Super Bowl in 2021, year 2 of Joe Burrow. They don't have as many contracts that are favorable with guys that they're getting on bargain deals compared to now. You know, it's just hard to see Cincinnati being able to get back to that game with Joe Burrow at the helm at quarterback. It just looks like they're going to waste another all-world talent at quarterback again like they did with Carson Palmer. But that's just the NFL.